Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes. I will call the meeting to order. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Larry Armstrong. Here. Sean Douglas.
Here.
Michael Howery.
Here.
Michelle Hayes. Gene Sensi.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
A second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 10th, 2019?
I'll move. I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th, 2019?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
Now open the first public participation portion of the evening. Is there any, this is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to comment on agenda items, you would have 5 minutes if you'd state your name and address. Seeing none. Reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. I have only one item that is not on the agenda, and that is to pass out the official statement that was produced as part of the refunding of the Build America bonds. Just to refresh your memory, it's one of the 3 types of debt that was issued to build the 2 new buildings. And several years ago, the state cut the federal subsidy associated with that debt issue, which allowed us to refund, or refinance is more commonly referred to, that portion of the debt. We did so because over the life of the remaining term of this debt, we're able to save the taxpayers about $1.3 million. It's a little bit every year, right around $50,000 to $60,000, but the big savings comes from paying it off 1 year early. So it's about $1 million in that last year that we're going to save the taxpayers. Didn't cost us anything to do it. All the costs of the debt issuance were built into the whole refinancing. Doesn't save the district any money. This is savings directly to the taxpayers of the Madison schools. It's about 1/10 of a mil, so it's something. But the big savings comes in the last year. Instead of paying it off in 2042, we pay it off in 2041. So that was a big deal. Any questions? That is almost the complete official statement. What I didn't copy was the audit for the fiscal year 2018, which was about another 70 or 80 pages. I thought I'd save some trees, but this is pretty much everything you want to know about the school district financially, and some of the financial aspects of Lake County in general. So, if there's no questions there, I'll move on to the items in the agenda. The first is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for November 2019.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. And I guess I go back to that point. I sent you, as I do every month, the financial reports, but I also included the reports off the new system. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't publicly thank my 3 staff members who we went from the old system, the state software, to the new system, and we only did 2 weeks with parallel processing. And when it came time to close November, we expected issues between the 2 systems, and we had none. We closed by, or were ready to close by noon on the first day we were back for December. So I can't thank them enough for the work that they put in practicing with the system before we went live, and then the work that they put forth when we did go live, and we are now off a system that was run on DOS. It was probably created before most of the students in the audience were around. And so we kind of had to go to the new system, and it is all web-based. It is really nice, and it provides reports. They look different, but once you get used to them, I think you'll enjoy, who except me enjoy school finance. You'll understand them a little better. And if you don't, let me know and I'll walk you through them.
DOS.
DOS.
Yeah, wow.
It was a blue screen with black letters, yes, it was.
Is that still on a 5.5-inch floppy?
It might have been,
flopped?
yeah. Their system had been failing for years, and they've gone through waves to get on this system, and we were the fourth wave. It was
Nice.
It was time. So again, I've got to thank Laura, Lynn, and Donna for their efforts. And now all the secretaries are using it, and they're all learning, and we'll train them so they're comfortable. So
Thank them on behalf of the board.
I will. The next item is to accept the rates, the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission, and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Larry Armstrong?
Yes.
Sean Douglas?
Yes.
Michael Howery?
Yes.
Gene Sensi?
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. The next item, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it relates to the joint financing district. So it is a resolution requesting the taxing authority of the Lake County School Financing District to submit the question of a renewal of an existing tax levy to the electors of that district.
I'll move.
A second.
Any discussion?
Mike, would you please explain the history of this levy and the effect it has on our district?
Sure. Originally in 1995, the districts of what was Painesville Township is now Riverside, Painesville City, Perry, and Madison got together to pool their tax values, mostly for three other districts to gain the value of the Perry Nuclear Power Plant. Excuse me, it was 1990 was the first time it was passed. So we've been collecting on this levy since 1990, and it was renewed in 95, 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015. It was actually on in November of 2019, and it failed by how many votes?
30.
30.
So, and more than half of those failure votes were out of Geauga County. So we actually brought it, you're allowed to bring a levy a year plus one election early, and we did that. So we're bringing it back in March. It currently generates for us right around $1 million, a little over $1 million. And it benefits the four districts. We would have to go out, and if we were trying to replace just this revenue stream, pass a levy that was more millage for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the homestead rollback would go away. So we've had this money for
30 years?
30 years. We were actually a little surprised it failed, but we've regrouped, and we're going to try and get information out to the voters again and try and get it passed. We have 2 more shots, but we really think it'll pass again in March. We just need to make sure the voters know what they're voting on. Some didn't know, so.
So if the homestead exemption, if we did it a different way, that would impact seniors.
Yeah, it would impact everybody, because right now, levies that were passed before a few years ago, if it was 1 mil, the taxpayers actually only pay about 87.5% of that. The rest is reimbursed by the state. Any new levies after that point, there's no more homestead rollback, no more reimbursement by the state. The full freight to generate that revenue is borne by the local taxpayers.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas?
Yes.
Michael Howery?
Yes.
Gene Sensi?
Yes.
Larry Armstrong?
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. The next is to accept donations. A donation of $1,000 from Gary and Kim Scope to North Elementary School to be used for Santa Street gifts. Donation of $200 from Conley Recycling Center to North Elementary School to be used for Santa Street gifts. Donation of live wreaths from Madison Garden Club to Madison local schools to be displayed on the buildings. Donation of 24 Spalding volleyballs from the Amateur Athletic Union to Madison High School to be used by the volleyball teams. Donation of $500 from Richard and Vicki Collins to North Elementary for Santa Streaks program. Donation of $50 from George and Patricia Morgan to North Elementary for the Santa Streaks program. Donation of $500 from Richard and Vicki Collins to Madison Middle School to be used for the Santa Streaks program. Donation of $200 from the Cleaning Authority to North Elementary for the Santa Streaks program. Donation of $150 from Marilyn Parker and family to North Elementary for the Santa Streaks program. Donation of $100 from Jennifer Havens to North Elementary for the Santa Streaks program. And a donation of miscellaneous classroom supplies from Chapel United Methodist Church to North Elementary School to be used as needed.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Would you like to share what the Madison Streaks program is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The Santa Streaks program is happening in a couple of our buildings where community members can adopt a student in need and purchase Christmas gifts and things that they need for them. I'd like to add, it's not on this one, but I think it'll be on an next agenda. Judge Collins and his wife also gave to the high school $500 because they're doing a gift card program. So they have been very generous this Christmas season with our community.
Nice.
Thank you to them. Any other discussion?
On behalf of Michelle, we should say thank you. Yes.
Michelle Hayes, one of our fellow board members, always makes a point of saying thank you to the community for all these generous donations and comments about how giving the community is. So we'll say that on behalf of the whole board, but specifically Michelle, who usually likes to make that statement. Roll call?
Michael Howery?
Yes.
Gene Sensi?
Yes.
Larry Armstrong?
Yes.
Sean Douglas?
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go into our reports, did you have any board member reports? Because I noticed that was left off the agenda.
Any board member reports?
I appreciate our music programs. We get blessed.
They are very talented. Eclectica performed at the fundraiser last night for the levy committee, and they performed 3 hours straight.
Yeah, they did a great job.
They really did.
They kept people engaged, and people stayed. They
I don't know
didn't
what we
take up
would've done without
spaghetti and leave, you
It would have
know?
been boring without them there. It really would have been.
It was very festive.
Yeah.
It was a very nice evening. All right. Well, ready, yep. All right, under my report, as promised, I have the pleasure of introducing our new Madison Blue Streaks football coach this evening. Mike Gilligan and his family are here. His boys Bryson and Charlie and his wife Shauna. Mike, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, just very honored for the opportunity to coach the guys, and we're going to do our best just to put a great product on the field, but also in the classroom and in the community socially, and that's pretty much our vision that we have, is just to build morale for the school, for the community, and do our best job we can. Thanks.
We appreciate your coaching over the years, and we look forward to an undefeated season next year. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So boys, do you have anything to say about your dad being football coach?
No.
No? So, and Mike and Shauna are both teachers in the district, and their children are in our schools, so they're very active in the community, and it's a pleasure to have him step into a very tough job, but a rewarding one.
Appreciate it. We're proud to have you.
Thank you very much.
Along those lines of music programs, last week I attended the South Elementary School 3rd grade program, and there was a little girl that was in this, and I shared it in my newsletter, but I thought it was worth sharing tonight here. This little girl was the scene stealer. I mean, she was big gestures, big smiles. It was, you could just pick her out. And I was sort of standing at the back, but she jumped out at me every time she got up to perform. And so after the program, I went up to Mrs. King, the director, and Ms. Creekmont, the principal. I said, "Who was that little one?" I mean, she just stole every minute of that show. And they told me who she was, and they said, when she came to South Elementary, she would not step foot into music class. would not go in the room, would not talk, didn't want to have anything to do with music. And Mrs. King built that relationship, built that rapport to where this little one had, you know, solo lines and during the performance, and just loved every minute of being on the stage. It was one of those moments where it's something that's that intangible of what we do that can't be measured anywhere else. And the joy on her face and the joy in the audience, because people were catching on to her that she liked that performing thing, and you know, and it was a lot of fun, and I was glad to have experienced that moment and be there. So because what we do sometimes gets very technical, and we have all these standards and we have all these things with ODE and reporting, but you know, when you get into moments like that, that's the heart of what we do.
The human side.
The idea of growth and
Right.
that we're teaching children.
Yeah.
The other thing I had the opportunity to do this week was I was in B.J. Tittman's class and did a little bit on leadership during his leadership class. And, you know, Pastor Mike has been very involved in the leadership class. And, you know, everybody told me what great discussion people they were, and they'd get into this. And they were a little shy with me. I think I changed the dynamic of the room a little bit. But it was fun to hear their ideas of leadership, how they saw themselves. I did just a little self-assessment with them, and that was the springboard for the conversation. And it was a 40-minute, it went really fast, I thought, the class. We were like, oh, it's done already? And, you know, Pastor Mike, like I said, has been very involved in this class, and he is, barring no blizzard or snow day, we joked about that last week.
Yes, we did.
But he's having a luncheon for these kids tomorrow.
Superintendent didn't say snow day, did she?
I was like, what?
I know, right? It's not happening.
I saw the ears
folks.
perk up.
It's not happening, and we're not live.
The audience came alive. There you go.
But I look forward to going to the luncheon and interacting with the kids again. And I
And you
really
did a great
appreciate.
job.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the fact that your involvement in that class, and you know, B.J. Tittman for feeling comfortable enough, because not everybody's comfortable having visitors in their room all the time, and you know, he has a very open door and very welcoming to people. You know, he worked with Pastor Mike, he's worked with the credit union people, so kudos to BJ.
Thank you, both of you.
And I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who's going to give a little update on the DLT and some of the things that we've been working on this year, and talk about direction for the next half of the year.
And I've shared these three big talking points with you before. These are the focus areas for our district leadership team this year. And and just kind of going through them real quickly again. Improving core instruction, and you can see the connections on this slide to our strategic plan. Educating the whole child is another big idea, and really that kind of gets into what are students' needs, what are barriers that prevent them from learning. It addresses behavior, it addresses attendance, it addresses any need really that a student has in order to be able to learn. And the final thing that we're constantly addressing is the effectiveness of our teams and how they support all of the work that we're doing. So for tonight, I really want to focus on improving core instruction, and particularly in the area of literacy instruction. And I'll share with you some of the things that are ongoing right now to try to get to this end. So we sat down as a leadership team and we said we wanted a comprehensive plan. We wanted to know what we do in Madison in terms of literacy instruction. We want it to be consistent from room to room, from grade level to grade level. We want our kids to have a smooth, comprehensive journey from preschool all the way through 12. And making sure that all elements of the state standards are being hit. We do teach to the state standards, but if you ever take a look at that document, it's huge. And there's not a whole lot of guidance about, well, what do you teach first? What strategies do you use? And so I think this plan is really going to, it's not so much the what we're going to teach, but when, how are we going to assess the effectiveness of it? But when you sit down and say you want to create this plan, where do you start? It's kind of this giant thing, and where do you take the first bite? We're working with our state support team through the Ohio Department of Education. They have helped us out by providing a tool. It's called the Reading Tiered Fidelity Inventory. This is a self-assessment of what we currently do. We did this with the elementary at the end of November. We're going to do it with the secondary teachers at the end, or sometime toward the beginning of January. And we go through, we self-assess, we determine what we're currently doing well, what we need to improve upon. There's about 40 different categories that we look at, and from that then we'll start to narrow it down and say, all right, what's our priority? What do we have in place already? What do we need to add to it? So this is a pretty comprehensive tool. It was a pretty fun process when we did it with the elementary, and that was the first time I had done it, and kind of enlightening. And some of the things we thought, yeah, we're doing pretty well with that, and others we thought, boy, we need to get that into our plan. So that's the work that's ongoing. Again, we want to have a written, clearly described document, so if we all win the lottery and decide to retire early and we have a whole new group that comes in, we can hand them this document and say, this is what we do in Madison, and you can take it over. And you know, we use our teams. We use our teacher teams that we carve out time for throughout the week and on Tuesdays at the middle school and high school to try to get on the same page with this work, because if we don't do that, what we end up having is kind of silos of learning. Each classroom's you know, very different if we don't give folks time to get together and work to be consistent. So that's some of the work that we've been kind of taking on right now. And my intent for the remainder of this year is to continue to report out on these three big areas, the work that we're doing, progress as we develop tools to share with you, and you know, ultimately this is going to guide our practice for teaching reading and writing and comprehension, but it's also going to be helpful when we go to apply for some of those competitive grants that we like to go after. First off, to see if the grant that we're looking at aligns with what we do, and secondly then we can point to our plan to say, look, this is what we're doing in Madison, this is how these funds would help support that, and it strengthens our applications. So so that's what we've been working on, one of the things we've been working on lately. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Do we see a difference in reading comprehension as these generations have gone on? You know, with attention spans shortening, it seems, with internet activity, and do we notice that or no? Is it just my house?
We have one of our premier reading teachers right here. Gretchen,
Nothing premier, but teach reading, yes, I do. I see a difference, very definitely. In the not just the comprehension, but the fluency as well. When they hit us at the third grade level, and we have the third grade guarantee from the state of Ohio that we have to meet. So all of that plays into that with the rate of fluency at which they read, because until their fluency develops, their comprehension isn't going to fall into place. So you have to have one before the other. They're building blocks.
And what we fall into is that there is a distinct gap in readiness when kids come to school. We have kids that have gone through pre-K and have had a lot of exposure to language, and we have had students that have had no exposure to language. In fact, their everyday speech, there's more and more speech delays and speech issues because people don't talk to each other anymore. They communicate via text, they do not have conversations, they don't read to their children at home. And I think the biggest thing that we tell parents when they come to kindergarten registration is you should be reading to your kid every day, you should be letting them read with you every day. You know, there is a wonderful program through the Dolly Parton Foundation, and both my kids just did it.
Imagination Library.
Yeah, Imagination Library. They get a book a month up until they're 5 years old. And that is to put books in the hands of kids and parents so that they're read to regularly.
Great program.
So that's how you stem this gap, is you get people reading and talking to kids. And that is a ongoing, I think, battle we fight, is to, you know, how much screen time, how much interaction, how much old-fashioned way of writing, reading and writing do you do? So it's a balancing act, because they're all important skills.
Right.
It just seems like the patience level to sit down, disconnect from everything and be quiet and read a book for 30 minutes. It just seems a big challenge compared to what it would have been many years ago. So that's why I asked the question.
Dave, is this like a constant ongoing process, or do you get to the end someday?
Well, I think our priorities change. So hopefully, as we go through and we're, you know, some of the other things we're really doing, the early literacy programs that we're doing at both North and South, the curriculum mapping and pacing and development of assessments at the middle school and high school, those things are going to be finished in the next year to year and a half. But constantly kind of cycling back through, looking at what we're doing. Is it effective? Are kids learning at a higher rate than they were? If not, we need to take a look at that. I mean, we have to, it's never ending. I think it's a mindset of continuous improvement. If we put something in place, then what's our next priority? And I can tell you, going through these self-assessments with this reading tiered fidelity inventory, there's some ongoing work to get to where we can say we've got everything in place. We're going to get something drafted this year, but it's going to take, you know, year after year of going back, revisiting, how's this working, what do we need to tweak. Well, we're never going to be finished until we get 100% of our kids, you know, reading, you know, math, science, social studies at the highest level. And until then, there's always room for improvement.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate you using your love of process. I think this is the right direction to definitely go. And with your love of process, you're the right man. But my question is, middle school, how are we doing in that area? I know a couple of years ago we were a little concerned. I think we started in the elementaries. How much has this yet moved up into the middle school?
Yeah. Last year was a big initiative to kind of get, we did a study of, based on our assessments, which parts of our curriculum are strong and which parts need to be adjusted, and we found that some places were being emphasized at the wrong time, and it was impacting test scores. So curriculum maps have been built for 6 through 12, and kind of moving some things around to try to get them in the right sequence in order to be most successful on how we're held accountable to state tests. In addition to that, we've got some new tools. We had the school improvement grant that we received. We have a program called Achieve 3000, which puts students on a computer reading and then doing comprehension questions, and it tests their reading lexile levels and adjusts, and you know, so we can track that data to see how
It's
our
that
kids are doing.
intervention piece of the
Nice.
RTI.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things happening. Again, we jumped in last year, you know, so it's in process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Good. Attacking the concerns.
yeah. There's research out there that talks about implementation of initiatives, and you really don't see the impact until you're up at around 80% of, you know, all of your students doing that, and getting that change is a process. It really is.
Great. Thank you.
All right, we do have one other item to quickly discuss. We sent the calendar dates out for next year's board meeting. We don't have to do anything except decide on one meeting tonight, which is the organizational meeting in January, and that has to occur within the first 2 weeks of the school new year. And we had proposed January 7th. Is that a problem for anybody?
Yeah, that would be a problem for me that day.
Is that a Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's a Tuesday.
Okay.
We have a levy committee meeting Wednesday night. We could go Thursday night.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be the 9th?
The 9th?
Yeah.
There we go.
Let me check Thursday.
Are you good Thursday?
I'm
Oh,
checking, I had
checking.
turned it off because I didn't text something up.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Check your calendars.
You had it on one of those lists
I
early
know.
proposed, so I didn't know if it was
So we're talking the 10th?
9th,
9th.
9th.
Thursday the 9th.
Oh my God, stop. It's because I'm in the wrong year. Hang on.
2020.
Thank you. The 9th is fine. Thank you.
Good for everyone else?
Yes, that's
Okay,
fine, thanks.
so we'll do
Okay.
January 9th.
In place of which one?
Well, it would be, usually we'd do it on the 7th.
Generally speaking, there was a Tuesday schedule and a Wednesday schedule
Correct.
proposed.
Correct.
Does anyone have any preference?
No.
I still gotta kind of check my days at work.
Okay,
See.
so we'll talk about it next time, right?
So organizational meeting is January
9th.
9th.
Is it our next meeting?
Yes.
We don't have another December meeting,
No.
right?
And it's 6 o'clock always, right?
Right.
Okay.
6 o'clock, still good.
Yep, okay.
And I guess at 5:45 will be the tax budget hearing. It's not a board meeting. You can come and ask
Oh, I
questions.
gotta be here.
You can come in if you want. Be happy to have you. But- So the tax budget will be sent to you prior to that date. Actually, it will be sent to you before New Year's because I have to publish in the paper that 10 days early that it's available for inspection by the board.
So our next board meeting will be January 9th, 2020 at 6 PM. We don't have any other meetings scheduled after that because we have to approve the schedule, which we'll do on the 9th. And we'll all look at our schedules.
The one we would need is related to that, the January meeting. So
Okay.
before the end of next week, we probably need to have an idea if the date is good,
All right.
okay?
Okay.
So, ready for recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. We're asking you to accept the following resignation, Kim Bukovic, as educational assistant at cafeteria at North Elementary School, effective December 20th, 2019, entering under the following employment contracts for substitute teachers, as approved by Lake County Educational Service Center. And remind me, we're going to have to change that next month to the new Western Reserve. And the Madison Local School District Superintendent under a one-year limited substitute teacher contract, Kevin Baggett, Sunny Day, Sarah Gribos, and Carrie Lamanzi. And approve the following transfer: Sheila Snyder from a 3 3¾ hour position as a cafeteria helper at Madison High School to a 6½ hour position as a manager's helper at North Elementary School, effective December 2nd, 2019.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And then the next item is a retirement resolution for Coach Willis, recognizing his years of service to the district as head football coach.
I'll move.
Second?
Any discussion? Thank you for many years of service.
And I will be presenting this to him at his celebration on January 4th.
Roll call?
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And this is the approval and second reading of the board policy update, beginning with employment of the treasurer and ending with food services.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And then the final item this evening is on the consent calendar, and it's to approve an overnight trip for the Madison High School wrestling team to participate in a tournament at Lincoln Heights High School in Columbus, January 17th through the 19th at no cost to the athletes, and also approving an additional night in Columbus to attend the Ohio State versus Illinois wrestling match at no cost to the board.
I'll move.
A second?
Any discussion? Just to irritate my mother-in-law, I'm going to say, go Buckeyes. Michigan fan, lives in Ohio, don't understand it. Roll call?
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
Open the second public participation portion for the evening. You can address the board on any item. You'd have 5 minutes if you'd state your name and address. Seeing none, is there a need for executive session? No. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Gene Sensi.
Yes.
Larry Armstrong.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.